Okay, Sunday morning, July 16th, 2023. So, yesterday I took the PMI ACP. I passed with 7 above targets. I think that's the max score. It is the max score, actually, now I recall. I just woke up, you know. Went out yesterday after that exam. Boy, I needed to go out and have a good time. So I went out with my wife, and one of her friends was visiting. We went out and had a steak dinner and walked all around Lviv. Ended up ordering a GoPro camera so I can have my videos more with like stereo vision or something, or farther away. And yeah, selfie stick. I want to do better videos. But anyway, let's talk about this ACP exam. So what are my tips for this exam? This exam is like geared to people who have experience working in Agile. Now, I started my Agile experience back in 2013 when I moved from the US to Norway. I was a systems engineer at BlackRock working with, ETL, extract, transform, load, bringing in data, running batch jobs. Then in Norway, they had a similar Perl and cron-based system for a fraud detection platform. And when I went to Norway, I started as a project manager and then quickly became the program manager when my boss quit. And right away, there was a lot of problems we had to solve. Single points of failure, developers who didn't want to talk to each other. There was no process. A lot of work was getting done. A lot of paperwork was, a lot of documents were being made, but nothing to show for the customers. The customers were all unhappy and full of bugs. And I kind of fell into Agile by accident. I was just going through this logical process of solving problems. I came from a Six Sigma background. That was my project management training long back. So I was just trying to use the Pareto chart and find these 20% of the things that cause 80% of the problems, and just keep working down the list and keep working on one improvement at a time until things got better. And then I discovered this Agile training course while I was on a business trip in Kiev, and the company decided, that, okay, they would pay for this. And I took 2 of my colleagues with me into this and got certified as a Scrum Master. And then the rest is history. Just started implementing and doing Agile and got in good with Jira and started reading books and Kanban. And so this test for me, I finished in 2 hours and 15 minutes, and that included like 20 or 30 minutes of checking over the answers. I was really done after an hour and 45 minutes, to be honest with you. I was hour 45 minutes, 2 hours. I had a lot of time left. But I studied, I read the Agile Practice Guide, but mostly I had experience. I mean, a lot of these problems I saw in the exam looked like stuff that I really encountered in real life, so I think this exam is more of a test of your experience as well as attention to detail. I can tell you that in PMP exam, you get 4 choices, and 2 of them you can rule out pretty quick, and then the last 2 you just kind of choices you work through until you can get to the right answer. This one you can only rule out 1 choice, and then you have to work through the last 3. And believe me, it gets down to the word, and you have to read the test question a few times, because you have to figure out, like, is it the stakeholder, is it the project manager, is it the team member? So you should really read the question. I remember when I was in the Navy and you get a question wrong, they would write RTFQ, read the effing question, on the exam. So make sure you're answering the right question. Those are my tips. And how do you get there? You have to do a lot of practice questions or do a lot of reading to the point where you're understanding details. So I would say this exam was harder in the sense that it was more testing your focus, ability to stay focused, and your attention to detail and your technical knowledge. The PMP was, I would say this exam was more difficult, right? Yeah, this was a difficult exam. The other PMP exam is harder. You have to have a lot more endurance. It's a harder test. It covers broader range of topics, and it tests your test-taking ability and your ability to read fast. You only get a 1 minute and 15 seconds per question in PMP, or in ACP you get 1 minute and 30 seconds. So one is harder and one is more difficult. There's a difference between something being hard and something being difficult. So in my definition, things that are harder is like endurance. Running a marathon is harder, running a sprint is more difficult, something like that. So this is like the ACP is like a sprint, compared to the PMP, in a sense, but it's more intense, and it's definitely more, like I said, much more detail oriented. But we got through it. I can tell you, I read the, what did I do? I read the Agile Practice Guide, the official one from PMI. I think that's what it's called, the Agile Practice, APG. I read that twice, all the way through with highlights and everything. Then I did the PM Prepcast practice questions. They had 4 practice exams there. So I had 75% average on the first pass. And they range from 68% to 80 something percent with an average of 75. So he says in his exams, the guy who sells this exam, if you get over 70 on the first try, you'll be okay for the ACP exam. I think that's true. That I think there was a pretty good. Those questions were pretty indicative of what's on the test. What else? Well, I had to get those 21 PDUs, so I took the Joe Phillips course because that was the cheapest thing on Udemy. Nice guy, but he'll put you to sleep. So I just, I wanted to just get the PDUs. I got 80% on his class exam, which was just barely passing, but I forgot to answer a question, and it was an easy one, so I would say 82. So, I mean, like I said, most of this was work experience. There's some vocabulary. I mean, there's like small things, right? There's just small vocabulary things you got to know, and you got to know your Scrum ceremonies. Know this. Now I'll talk about this agile mindset. I worked in Norway and Scandinavia, so this agile mindset has been there even before agile was there. I mean, management structures there are flat. Workers are heavily unionized, so you can't go lose your shit at the office and snap at people. You have to have high emotional intelligence. You have to have negotiation skills, facilitation skills, because it's a matrix organization. There's very little hierarchy. Everything has to be done by consensus. If you work in Sweden or Norway, this agile test will be very easy. Now, if you're working in like Russia, India, Africa, and you're used to like all this hazing and people beating each other up and failure is punished and you get fired for anything, it's going to be a hard exam, because this is not natural for you. But if you've worked in like a progressive tech company, or like I say, you worked in Northern Europe, Netherlands too is, Netherlands is a little bit more hierarchical. I've worked in Netherlands as well. But I think living in Scandinavia would be the best preparation for this test as far as getting the agile mindset. So yeah. So now tomorrow I go to work. I've been setting up agile at a company in America, a healthcare company, really trying to get them into Scrum. They've been doing a lot of work. Everyone's really busy, a lot of piles of documents, but not much working code, not much to show the stakeholders who are just throwing millions of dollars into this project. So we're trying to get this mindset that working code trumps documentation. And then we're trying to get them to work in sprints and commit to things. And it's really hard. I tell you, real life, it's really hard. When you're asking for estimates, these guys already want to start planning to do a project versus getting estimations. I'll tell you, getting estimations is probably the hardest thing you're going to have to do. To get meaningful estimations, this is hard. And immediately when they're estimating, they're already like trying to, do a quote or something, and they need weeks to, they were telling me in the meeting they need weeks to get estimates done. And I was like, no, we're gonna just break down this, feature into epics, this key deliverable into epics, I should say. We have deliverables, yeah. And then just estimate on the epics so we can build a roadmap around this. This was hard. In real life, this is hard. What else is hard? Getting people to think like differently, especially if they're like from India or Ukraine, it depends. But if they're from India, there's a lot of hierarchy. There's always like some guy in the background who's in charge and who who make sure they're saying the right thing. So it's very hard to get these self-organizing teams and allow people room to breathe and room to fail. That's almost next to impossible. So I would say in real life, you're going to have to be a bit more directive, especially if you're working with IT outstaffing companies who are, their success is not judged on the success of the project. Their career success is judged on how many hours they bill. So if they can take a relatively simple project that's supposed to take 2 weeks and turn it into a 3-month thing, and they're getting paid for the whole 3 months, and the customer doesn't deliver, hey, that guy's getting promoted. He just expanded business. He brought in revenue. So that's something you got to be aware of. When you're at a company and dealing with outsourcing, I would always argue that you should go for team extension, to take the guys and put them right into your own team so you can directly manage them and not go through the consulting company's hierarchy. That's always the way. So the companies have to invest in strong leadership, strong architect leadership and project management leadership. They should have that in-house. If not, they got to find a guy like me who actually cares, who wants to actually get a project done regardless of the money. I was raised in the Midwestern U.S., so we have that mentality. I was born in Minnesota, grown up a little in Wisconsin, and went to high school in Chicago, and then studied. I studied a year in California, 4 years in Kansas, and then did my MBA at the University of Illinois. So yeah, I'm mostly a Midwestern person, So yeah, it's because that's where outsourcing and all that can fail, is like the contracts are poorly written, and it gives room a lot of and the trust is broken a lot. Maybe not even that. It's like sometimes the companies just don't have competent management. They just struggle. They undervalue management. You have developers, who can code. They can code really well, but you have to tell them what to do, and then you have to tell them when you need to have it done by, and you gotta tell them, go and check in ChatGPT if what they're saying is true or not, so that if a 2-day thing, they're trying to stretch it out to 2 weeks. They do that. A lot of people don't have this sense of time. And then on the other side, you have this management who knows what they want, and they're doing business meetings, sales meetings and stuff, and they really don't know how to manage execution. They don't know how to manage the delivery of the project. So then oftentimes you get people building the wrong stuff or taking too long to build it. So management has to be valued, and to be in this career, it is hard. You're stuck between, unrelenting, demanding stakeholders. Then you're on one side, and then you've got developers who are, suffering some form of autism on the other side, and they're basically children. It's like working at a kindergarten. I'll tell you, if you really want to get experience and be successful in this job, even more than military experience, I would say volunteer at a daycare center for a few weeks and learn how to deal with children, because that's what you're dealing with. I remember I was working with some developers in Norway, and I moved the mouse on his desk or something. I don't know. It was like too close to my desk, so I just moved it, and he just almost lost his shit. And one time we were fixing up Jira tickets, so we could, that they made more sense, more layman sense, or human readable sense. They weren't just gibberish. And man, we had to always dance around this guy, because he was one of those single point of failure guys. And his code he didn't document in the code. It was all tightly coupled. It was hard. It's really it's a hard job, and it's very underappreciated. Everyone appreciates the developers, and everyone appreciates the salesmen, but everyone sees project managers as like this kind of like luxury spending or something. Like, oh, the lead developer can also be the project manager, or one of the guys from management can also manage the project. But if you don't have the training for this, or you have the instinct. Now, I think if you were grown up in the Midwestern U.S. and around farms or factories, you might have the instinct for this. My father was an industrial engineer for the 3M company, so he used to talk about this kind of stuff at home a lot. So it kind of and then he was building houses. He was doing home building on the side. So and there was all these project plans and all this diagrams and everything, and so yeah, unless you hadn't grown up around it or something, you need training. It needs to become instinctual. So anyway, that's all I got. I wish you luck on this, your exams. I think this PMI stuff it's generally in the right ballpark. Of course, there's limits to what you can learn online and learn in the books, and you have to go out and do it real world, but at least it gives you a framework. It gives you something to go by. I mean, those 49 processes, for example, in PMP, I'm actually using that in my job to get a sequence and to bring order to the chaos in this current position, to get everything done in the right order, just to fall back on procedures. I mean, you have to vary it, of course. That's called tailoring. I mean, not everything fits the stencils, but they're pretty close. I'd say they're pretty close. Anyway, take care. Bye-bye.